Good afternoon, almost evening, Andover. Welcome to Convocation 2021. On this last night of the last day of the month of August, we gather. We come to open the envelope of this academic year, this 2021-2022 year. For the first time, we, this particular body of faculty, are together. Some of us know one another from short months or long years. Some of us are new to the fold. We come surely full with a mix of emotions and thoughts as we settle into this sanctuary. Anxious, excited, fearful, eager, heavy with grief, light with relief, rested and still exhausted, weary and renewed, and so much more. Some of us come with hurts that need healing, losses that need grieving, frictions that need forgiveness. Some of us come with abundant gratitude and eager enthusiasm, thirsting for reconnection and the rhythm of a normal school year, even if that means something entirely else now. So let all of yourself come into this space with authenticity and tenderness. There is room for all of it in this vast space set apart. Take this moment to let the swirling of many things just be. And allow the best of yourself to come and rise to the surface so that we may begin together. As we open this envelope of a year, let us now line it with the layers of goodness as we embark, summoning things that our community will need in abundance for this challenging year ahead. Courage in our doing and our striving, our curiosity and our planning, wisdom in our teaching and our learning, in our listening and our speaking, compassion in the care we take of our students, in the patience we offer to one another, hope for what might be possible, for what might be truly put down and left behind. Let us arrive this night. We need one another, and this year is going to ask a lot of us all. So let us mark this opening with prayers for hope, for tomorrows of promise, for an evening of rest, for a morning of new beginnings, and a start to a tremendous year. May this night indeed be a first, for we begin it now together, with hope, with compassion, with wisdom, with courage. In the name of all that is holy and all that is good, we pray. Amen. And now I welcome Dr. Raynard Kington, our 16th head of school, to the podium to start us off.
Thank you. Thank you, Gina. Well, welcome everyone, new and returning faculty, spouses, partners, faculty emeriti, and trustees. It's a pleasure to be back together in this majestic chapel to celebrate the start of the 2021-22 academic year. We are pleased that Trustee Emerita Betsy Powell, Abbott Academy class of 1956, is with us, along with current trustees William Tong, 91, Keith Flaherty, 89, and we're especially delighted to welcome Nancy Sizer, wife of the late Ted Sizer, the 12th head of school. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Now, our physical presence here together is an important step forward, even as the pandemic continues to test our resolve and to dictate how we live and work. In uncertain times, we rely on sources of stability. Cochrane Chaplain, a fixture since its dedication in 1932, symbolizes the enduring strength of our community. It binds us in times of celebration and in times of reflection and grief. Two events happening within days of each other in June, the candlelight baccalaureate for the class of 21 and the beautiful memorial service for our colleague Emily Trespass, brought that concept to light. Togetherness combined with the serenity of this space created profound meaning. Our world has changed dramatically during the past year, and we've faced seemingly endless challenges, even tragedy. The unthinkable loss of Loie Imayagi, class of 21, just weeks ago, weighs heavily on all of us. As we grieve the loss of a life that was brimming with promise, it's fitting that we gather once again in this chapel. Please join me in a moment of silence in the memory of Loie. Thank you. Despite the struggles we face, I hope that this year can recapture the joy and the sense of community that I know resides within us. Among many reasons to be hopeful, I recently had the opportunity to meet our new faculty members and teaching fellows, an extraordinary group of educators who will bring their unique perspectives and experiences to our program. Our newest colleagues will be introduced when we gather for faculty meeting tomorrow. I'd also like to recognize the most senior among us, our faculty emerita. Andover's legacy of excellence stands on the shoulders of those who came before us. We have much to learn from their devotion to the craft of teaching and their commitment to young people. So please join me in a round of applause for all faculty emeriti. I'd also like to thank all of those who helped prepare today's program, our talented musicians, the teams in technology and physical plant, the Dean of Faculty's office, the Head of School's office, and the team in Presky Commons. I want to thank all of you. I will now continue with a somewhat longer than usual set of traditional remembrances and milestones. This past year, we saw the loss of 6 faculty emerita. These individuals served in myriad roles beyond the titles that I will mention. Sarah Warren, World Languages Department; Aloysius Lolo Hobos, Audiovisual Department; Meredith Price, English instructor; Emily Trespass, art instructor; Christina Rubio, dance instructor; and Kelly Wise, English instructor and founder of the Institute for the Recruitment of Teachers. Again, please join me in a moment of silence in their memory. Thank you. Convocation is also an occasion to mark joyful passages in the lives of our faculty, and we've had quite a few this year. First, we begin with faculty who married this past year. Emily Booth and Rob Clark on October 24th of 2020. Terrell Ivory and Annie Mara, December 20th of 2020. We also celebrate babies born this past year, and there are a few. Allie Booth and Rob Clark welcomed Honor Sienna Clark on March 5th, 2021. Kieran Bardwa and Michael Boyle welcomed Perrin Vihan Boyle on March 31st, 2021. Jill and Trey Meyer welcomed Bo Lewis Meyer on April 1st, 2021. Megan and Christian Dangraman welcome Amelia Florence Dangraman on April 30th, 2021. Chris Ishizuka Wade and Megumi Ishizuka welcome Kaito Derui Ishizuka Wade on June 9th, 2021. Terrell Ivory and Annie Mara welcome Tracy Lovell Ivory on June 21st, 2021. Tyron Dandridge and Shireen Davidson welcome Oakley Dandridge on June 22nd, 21. And Brigitte Leshorn and Ryan Smith welcome Chani Smith Arucha on June 26, 2021. I will now recognize those faculty members marking service milestones, beginning their 10th year on the faculty. Cassie Archambault, Alan Grimm, Jean Hughes, Terrell Ivory, Ted Parker, Amy Patel, and Patrick Riley. Beginning their 11th year in faculty, Lilia, Kai Herto, Pete Dignard, Chloe Epstein, Tricia Haar, Joelle Jacob, Sean Logan, Carmen Munoz Fernandez, Ken Shows, Abby Siegfried, and Ton Min Zhao. Beginning their 20th year in faculty, Tracy Ainsworth, Emma Frey, Deb Olander, Keith Robinson, Donnie Slater. Beginning their 21st year on the faculty, Sue Buckwalter, Catherine Carter, Matt Lisa, Carolyn Oden, Dan Snyder, Paul Tortorella, and Flavia Vidal. Beginning their 30th year on the faculty. I told you this was going to be long. Clive Beckwith, Kevin Cardozo, Marcel Dahini, and Aya Murata. Beginning their 31st year on the faculty, Ellen Greenberg and Faye Yao. Beginning her 37th year on the faculty, Karen Kennedy. Beginning his 40th year on the faculty, Mike Kuta. And our most senior faculty member, Nick Kipp, who was hired in 1968, a remarkable 54 years of service. Join us in celebrating their tenure. Now I would like to invite our talented faculty musician, Peter Lorenzo, to share his music with us. Peter will be performing a guitar solo, Capriccio Árabe, by Spanish composer Francisco Tárrega. That was lovely. So I would like to begin our academic year with a few personal thoughts. I suspect that I'm like most of you in thinking that this summer was far too short. I completed just a fraction of all the tasks on that long list of things that I had every intention of getting to during the summer break. My summer was disrupted even more than usual by having the first in a series of oral surgeries that I've been postponing for far too long. That was not fun, and you'll notice over the course of the year that my speech may vary depending on where I am with these procedures. But I also took several days to drive down to Baltimore and to help my brother finally clear out the storage locker where we packed much of my late parents' furniture and many personal items when we emptied their condominium 7 years ago after my father's passing. While I was in Baltimore, on a whim, I decided to drive through the sections of the city that were part of my childhood. I drove past the crumbling brick remnants of the segregation-era Negro hospital where I was born and where my father was on staff. It was then the only hospital in the city that allowed African-American physicians admitting privileges. I drove past the school where my mother taught and the church where she ran summer camps for kids who had no other activities during the summer. But among the most meaningful places I visited was my elementary school, Hilton Elementary School, PS 21, whose motto was, "Hiltonites are leading lights." Now, I have occasionally spoken about how special that school was for me. When I began attending that newly opened building, more than a decade had passed since the Brown Supreme Court decision outlawing segregated public schools, but Baltimore schools remained rigidly segregated, and all of the students in my school were African American. It was a peculiar time in the late 60s, just before the world of my childhood would begin to radically change. Now, the teachers in that school were extraordinary. They knew that many of us in those rooms would walk through doors that no person of color had ever walked through. And they demanded that we be prepared to walk through them with heads high and with the ability to do whatever it took. They knew that we all had great promise and that some of us would end up here, in front of this podium, in a room like this, on a campus like Andover. My teachers had an almost religious commitment to their role in preparing us to be in places like this and to excel. Now, as I was driving past the school, I remembered an incident that I hadn't thought about in years. I actually have never mentioned it to a single person, not even to my parents and siblings. So almost all the teachers at that school were African American, but at one point, there were a few young white teachers in the Baltimore school system who were doing their version of Teach for America. At our school, there were several of them, all highly educated, privileged young people who had decided to be part of the change that was happening in our society at that time and to teach children in the African American community. Now, many of them, almost all of them in fact, had no knowledge of our community other than the colors of our skin. And they had many preconceived notions that were wrong, including assumptions about our families. I'm sure it didn't take them long to realize that at that school, a significant number of the kids in the school were children of professionals who were themselves second and sometimes third generation college educated. Well, I will call my one white teacher Mr. Smith, because he had an unusual name and he's probably still around. Mr. Smith was unusual even within that group of white teachers because he was an attorney from a family of distinguished attorneys. He had left the family firm to learn about a different world. Now, one day he became infuriated with me because of, in spite of specifically telling me multiple times to stop talking with my friends when we were supposed to be doing classwork, I continued to talk. And I don't know what got into me that day because I rarely got into trouble in the classroom. And if my parents had known, they would have made their displeasure clear to me. And perhaps that is why I never told them the story. Now, he reached his limit at some point and said, "Raynard, enough. Leave the classroom, go out and sit on the floor in the hall until I come and get you." So I went and sat in the hall. A few minutes after I sat down, another teacher, Mr. Gibbs, came walking down the hall. Now, Mr. Gibbs was this tall, dapper African-American man. He had a neatly groomed mustache. He always wore a pressed white shirt and a tie, even when teachers had begun to dress more casually. When he saw me, he stopped, and with a confused look on his face, he asked me why I was sitting there in the hall, on the floor. So I told him why, and I could see his face begin to turn red. He told me to stand up and to follow him, and we walked to another room, and as we walked, I could hear him talking to himself. I don't think he was talking to me, but I will never forget what he said. He said, "That is now not how we treat our children." Well, we reached an empty classroom, and he told me to go in and sit until the lunch bell rang, and then to rejoin my class at lunch. He then bent over and looked me directly in the eye in his no-nonsense way and said, "And young man, you had better stop talking when you're not supposed to in class. Do you understand?" And I nodded, and then he left. So I stayed in the room until the bell rang and then joined my class at lunch, and the day went on as if nothing had happened. But the entire episode just stuck in my mind. First, I really did try to stop talking when I wasn't supposed to, at least for a while in class. But in the days and weeks to come, I kept hearing in my mind what Mr. Gibbs had murmured. That is not how we treat our children. I think the reason why that episode has such an impact on me was not because I was somehow smug about Mr. Gibbs overriding a young white interloper in our world, though I know if I had been Mr. Smith, I would not have been so happy. It wasn't that at all. It was because Mr. Gibbs conveyed to me that I was loved and valued, that I was his child like every child in that school. And while he had high expectations that he demanded that we meet, he would never allow us to be humiliated. This small slice of my childhood reminded me of why the hard work that all of you do day in and day out is so important. All of you know the challenge of being demanding, but in a loving way. The challenge that is a source of tension at the center of great teaching. Every day in the classrooms, in the dorms, on the playing fields, you're shaping the lives of our children, your children. For years to come, thousands of small slices of your interactions with students will be imprinted as memories and lessons and will be recalled decades later as I recalled this one. James Baldwin once said, "A child cannot be taught by someone who despises him." Perhaps a corollary of that bit of wisdom is that children are best taught by teachers who love them. There are about 6 words for the different types of love in ancient Greek. We should invent a new word for that special kind of love, a pure love between a teacher and a student. The love that Mr. Gibbs and so many of the teachers in my elementary school, even Mr. Smith on his good days, showed me. The type of love that you show every day to Andover students. Although we are all relieved to be able to start school this year in a manner more like normal, we will continue to face challenges. There will be frustrations, but also many more moments of unfiltered in-person joy. I hope that in those challenging moments, you will remember that every day, in ways that you might not even be aware of, you are influencing and shaping our children. You are doing important, life-altering work, and as head of school and as a parent, I am so grateful. So thank you again for gathering this afternoon. The staff at Presky Commons is waiting for us to arrive for a reception that has been prepared especially for you. I'd also like to thank Ms. Sizer for appearing today. I don't know how long it's been since you've been back here, but it's wonderful to see you. We talk about you all the time as we go through our house. You're renowned. Thank you again, and please join us at Presky.